This is the new Mercedes C-Klasse, and if you feel like you've heard that before, well, that's because we just covered the new C-Klasse EV, and that's built on a different EV platform, but the ICE versions of the new C-Klasse are on an upgraded version of the existing platform. So, how's it better? How's it different? I'm AJ, you're watching Autogefühl, and as you can see, we have both the Estate and the Sedan, so let's dive right in. Up front, this is probably where you will notice the biggest change. It looks like a baby S-Class, as the C-Klasse always has been, but quite different and a little bit more subtle and traditional as compared to the electric version. You have a much larger grille with these star patterns in the middle of the grille as well, illumination on the edges, depending on the market, even illumination for the logo. Of course, you have the AMG line, you have the Avant-Garde line, you have Night Pack, you have different cosmetic packages to choose from. This being the AMG line with the Night Pack, a much more aggressive lower part of the bumper, completely blacked out, is what you get. Of course, also with the new Mercedes lineup, you get these really cool star pattern LED lights integrated into the main headlamp unit. What do you think of this new design? Do you like the ICE version of the C-Klasse or the EV version of the C-Klasse? Put it down in the comments below. Not much has changed on the side profile. There is a whole lot of new technology, and we'll be getting into that pretty soon. But what carries forward and is a pretty unique feature in this segment is rear axle steering for both the Sedan and the Estate. So 2.5 degrees in the same direction when you're driving at high speed on the Autobahn as the front wheels, to give you a more of a strafing, elongated wheelbase effect for more stability, and the inverse, so in opposite directions at low speeds to effectively reduce the turning circle. There are also new wheel designs, 18 and 19 inches, including a new bespoke 19-inch AMG Line Plus design. This is the older design, and to be honest, not my favorite. I would much rather have these wheels. These are very nice, a lot of spokes here, very elegant. This is, I think, 19 inches, yes it is. Which one do you prefer? This is also a new color that is now available with the C-Klasse. We saw it on the C-Klasse EV, the lavender silver metallic. There's also a moody sky gray finish as well. With the Night Pack, you also have a dark chrome door handle that is now available, along with, of course, blacked out window frames. This being the Estate, you have, of course, a different body style, a lot more practical on the inside. Which of the two body shapes do you prefer? The front of the Estate is identical to the front of the Sedan. If you have the Avant-Garde instead of the AMG line, this part of the bumper looks quite different, and in my eyes, a little bit better. Fortunately, I don't have that here to show you at the moment, but stay tuned for when we get a chance to test out different versions of this car, and we can take a closer look at these details then. The back of the Estate, dare I say, hasn't changed a lot, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Even the rear lights are pretty much the same as they were before, but to me this is a lot more executive, a lot more subtle looking. I could see this as my company car, for example. Down here with the AMG line, you also get the more athletic, sporty diffuser in the lower bumper. I don't really buy it. I don't think it makes a big difference in terms of the aerodynamics, and certainly I don't really like these fake exhaust tips. But the C Sedan, on the other hand, has a slightly more refreshed look, thanks mainly in part to these new rear lights with, as you can see, the star pattern inside, similar to the S-Class, the E-Class, and pretty much across the lineup at this point. Down here, same story continues with the AMG line with the fake tips, but overall, I still think the Estate looks better. Under the hood of the ICE versions of the new C-Klasse, you have slightly more updated versions of the tried and tested 2-liter Turbo 4 petrol and diesel engines with mild hybrid tech. The most powerful petrol you can get is 258 horsepower with the C300, and the strongest diesel is about 200 horsepower. Either rear-wheel drive or the 4MATIC all-wheel drive. And again, because it's a mild hybrid, there is a little motor that can help with things like low-speed torque as well as high-speed coasting. Both the Estate and the Sedan can be had as plug-in hybrid. As you can see, this has a 100 kilowatt electric motor with a 19.5 net lithium-ion battery, which gives you about 100 kilometers of electric-only driving. Of course, we can test that out in the real world. Charging speeds of about 11 kilowatt AC and 55 kilowatt DC. I think it's a good option to have nowadays with the ever-changing market and the prices of petrol. I think a plug-in hybrid makes a lot more sense today than it ever has done before. Here we have the key fob. Not much has changed. And let's take a look inside. Same story here, not much has changed. A little bit of different material and finishes on the door. But if you take a look inside, there are some bigger changes indeed here. For example, you get this cherry red Art Deco leather seat. So before you had a very bright popping red, which of course wasn't to everybody's taste. This is a lot more palatable and I quite like this color. There's also a beach brown. I always prefer these artificial leatherette seats, but if you want animal skin, you can also get the leather and the Napa leather as well. But the big story really is the tech that's inside. So let's hop inside and take a closer look at some of these upgrades. This looks very familiar and very pleasant to me. I really like Mercedes interiors because they have so much intricate detailing, especially with all the lights. But what's different and in a great way is the fact that they have changed the steering wheel now to bring back rocker switches and rollers and more clickable buttons for your cruise control and your media control. So I'm really glad. I've seen this already with the new CLA that I drove, but I'm really glad that buttons are coming back. Double thumbs up for that. The digital instruments are very useful, very familiar. You can, for example, have different views, like the entire screen can have the map. You can bring the speedometer and the tach back in, or have different kinds of, odometer and your trip computer. Very useful indeed. The new infotainment is on the latest MB.OS, so you have Google in the background, a lot of AI assistance, and over-the-air updates. You can use multiple commands together in natural language, or you can use simple things like, "Hey Mercedes,
how can I help?
Navigate me to Mannheim."
Let's head to Mannheim.
Of course, the head-up display is really large, as we know, and has the map integrated, but with this new version of the C-Klasse, you also get augmented reality commands as well, which is pretty cool. In addition to that, you have some new fun little features, like for example, you can choose the different ambient styles, again, similar to the things we've seen in other Mercedes cars. So the ambient lighting, the background of the screen, the theme of even your infotainment, all of these things change, along with the instrument cluster as well. So pretty cool. Also, some of these come with their own sound profiles, so you can play around and customize this to your liking. This new version also comes with a camera, which allows you to do things like authenticate purchases and payments on the apps here using your face. Also, you can, when you're parked, you can have a video conferencing call. And if you notice, the camera is here actually. It's in the middle air vent, and you might be wondering, well, AJ, does that mean I can turn the camera towards me because I can turn these vents? And I tried, but no. This vent is now locked and it's rigid. You can just turn it on and off, but then the camera's always pointing inside. There's a lot of adjustability in the seat as well as the steering wheel, so finding a comfortable seating position is really easy. This would be roughly where I would like to sit, and as you can see, I have plenty of headroom, even with the panoramic roof, which in this case, as you might have already guessed, can be opened completely. Storage is also pretty well organized here in the interior. You have pretty large door pockets, but also here you see a nice damped glove box with felt lining and a shelf. So really nice to organize different kinds of items. It's not just one big kind of gaping cavity. So good for that. Also lockable. You have different inlay material options. This is a carbon fiber-like inlay. I'll show you what the estate version has because there are some interesting new designs for that as well. Glossy black center console, I know, but yeah, I think this is nothing new. It does have a slight texture on it, to be honest, but it's very subtle. But at the end of the day, it will leave some fingerprints, so better keep a microfiber cloth to clean that. You can also open this panel, and then down here you have a couple bottle holders, which are a little bit more adaptive and are spring-loaded. That's pretty nice. You have a place to keep your key for example, and an inductive phone charging pad over here, really grippy with some ventilation, a couple USB-C ports down there, padded center armrest, which is pretty robust, and then you can open it to reveal a pretty shallow kind of a box here with another USB-C, but I do like that there's a little light down there so you can see what's inside. So overall, pretty practical, and again, nothing too different. So the wheelbase for the C-Class sedan and the Estate are the same, but of course the body here is quite different. So this does have a little bit less headroom in the back. Let's see how that really translates. Getting inside is pretty easy. Again, it's not too small, so you don't have to bend low down, but this is not an SUV, so yes, keep that in mind. This seat, remember, was set roughly to my driving position, so me sitting behind myself at 173 centimeters or about 5'8". I have plenty of legroom. There's plenty of space here. I also have space to slide my feet under the front seat. I generally tend to sit with the seat lower down, but if you have a driver with a higher seating position, there's even more space for your toes. Nice padded contours here. 2 more climate zones, again optional how many zones climate that you would like to have. But nice that we have a dedicated console back here, but not so nice that there is a large transmission tunnel right in the middle. Let's take a look at how the center seat is. So yes, I have to share the footwells of my co-passengers, but the base is actually pretty comfortable, but the back is a bit stiff, and that's because, as you might have guessed, this is actually a center armrest with a phone holder, which also doubles as cup holders. So there's a lot of hard plastic material in this, which makes it a bit stiffer. But overall, a pretty comfortable place, along with 2 Isofix child seats. And I also like the fact that these Isofix mounting points, these flaps just tuck away like this. You don't have to pop them out. I recently became a father, and I know that these Isofix points, if they pop out, you can lose them easily. So I like that this is just a little bit of that extra over-engineering, which I like. This flap is a bit rubberized and this is stiff, so this kind of tucks itself behind that. I know I'm getting on about this, but these small details really are what makes a luxury brand stand out. It's the thought that matters. Here in the back, as you see, I have just enough headroom. I'm not touching the top, but if you're taller than me, so if you're like Thomas, 6 foot, then you probably will be. There is a little glass panel here, which helps kind of make the space look a little bit more bigger and feel a little bit more airy. Overall, not terrible though. This is the interior of the Estate C-Class. As you see, we have a different seat here. This is a full leather seat. This is a new kind of stitching that they have for this new version. There's also different inlays. This is a metallic finish. The new C-Class also comes with a wood grain inlay that you can spec if you want. Not real wood, of course, but I always think wood looks nice in a luxury car. Just to point it out again, the climate control, of course, is also operated completely within the touchscreen. So you have, of course, shortcut buttons that are always here. But if you want a more detailed menu, you can push this button and then you can go into more functions. Yeah, I still prefer real physical buttons, but again, this has been around for such a long time now. I've made my peace with it. Have you? All right, so more headroom? Well, yes, but also it doesn't really seem like it was a hindrance in the rear seat of the sedan, but definitely here there is a bit more space and this larger panoramic roof. I think that is a bigger difference between the two. It's a lot more airy, so while I might not have so much more space, I do, it's more of the perceived space that really makes a difference here in the Estate as compared to the sedan. Same extra climate unit here, same central transmission tunnel, same center armrest, and the same great Isofix points. Let's take a look inside the trunk. As you can expect, the sedan is not as practical as the Estate. This height is about 38 centimeters, and that's partly due to the fact that the plug-in hybrid battery is below here, so it doesn't give you a lot of vertical height. You can fit a suitcase here. It is pretty long, and you can fold the seats down 40, 20, 40 all the way flat. There is a little bit of a dip, but at the end of the day, you can stack, for example, your IKEA furniture. But if real practicality is what you're after, then certainly the Estate makes much more sense. With 490 liters of trunk capacity, going up to 1,510 with the seat down if you don't have the plug-in hybrid, because again, you see here the battery takes up a little bit of space with this hump. It's not terrible. You do have this scuff plate and even this plastic kind of shield here so you don't damage the actual fabric. But at the end of the day, this is the more practical of the two. Also 40, 20, 40 folding seats with that little bit of a dip down here. Again, because of that raised battery pack. But to me, this is definitely the smarter choice. And I like this automatic parcel shelf as well. The new C-Class starts at around 49,000 euros and goes up to 60,000 euros for the sedan. If you want the Estate, it's about 2,000 euros more, so this tops off at around 62,000 euros. Mercedes have played it very smart and safe. Don't fix something that isn't broken. This is a very popular platform and a very popular model. They've just kept all the good traits of the existing platform, but brought it up to date with all the new technology. If you want a full EV, they've got you covered there as well. I'm really curious, and I'd love to do a comparison of the new C-Class EV and the plug-in hybrid to see what changes and differences I can feel between the two platforms. If you are as well, let me know in the comments below. Of course, subscribe if you're new here, because as you can see, we're not getting to drive this quite yet. You don't want to miss the episode when we get a full chance to do the full road test. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.